In the episode, Abby Arcane bravely retrieves a plant sample and brings it back to the CDC to research a way to turn her love. Abby delivers the plant samples to the CDC headquarters, where the analytical department conducts a comprehensive test. They warn that the plant is toxic and must be handled with caution. The newly appointed deputy director arrives and continuously reprimands Abby for her negligence, staying in town against orders and not reporting daily progress on time. Local doctors also express dissatisfaction with Abby spending all day in the swamp and only showing up at the hospital occasionally. The deputy director decides to conduct a strict assessment and warns her not to disobey orders again. Meanwhile, on Avery's side, he wanders the forest, disoriented under the influence of dark forces, and hallucinates the sheriff pointing a gun at him. Terrified, he falls to the ground pleading, but the sheriff doesn't fire and mysteriously walks away, leaving Avery confused. As he attempts to follow and confront her, a vine suddenly sprouts, turning into a bloody, monstrous creature that attacks him, then vanishes, making Avery realize it was all a hallucination. Meanwhile, the wealthy businessman interrupts Dr. Woodrue, who is engrossed in his work, emphasizing the project's unique nature that could potentially change the course of human evolution and involve significant commercial interests. To prevent any information leaks, the wealthy businessman uses Avery's wife's real estate to set up a lab, urging Dr. Woodrue to complete the task swiftly. Overwhelmed by his sinister experiences and unable to continue walking, Avery decides to rest on the ground, but sees a plant creature with a menacing look standing in front of him. Back with Abby, she awaits the test results while her friend, Harlan, brings her food, and they happily share a meal. Abby confesses to hiding the truth about the bizarre mutations linked to the epidemic, which is beyond scientific understanding, to prevent the scientist from becoming test subjects. She had gone to the swamp alone for this reason. Avery, after being shocked into a coma, he awakens to find strange implants in his body. Swamp Thing reveals that the plants are not harmful, but are medicinal herbs meant to clear infections and accelerate cellular healing, shocking Avery and making him realize that the sheriff wasn't lying. The scientist not only survives but becomes a terrifying creature, Avery speaking sorrowfully to gain sympathy. However, Swamp Thing steps forward to angrily reprimand him. Avery shows no remorse, only having destroyed the ecosystem, causing dark forces to rise, turning himself into a monster, and explaining the scientist's transformation. Back with Abby, Harlan believed her, and later supported Abby's actions. He would help Abby with what she needed, so that the scientist Alec could return to his human form. Abby was very happy to hear that her friend believed in her, and then hugged her goodbye. Harlan then left, but unbeknownst to Abby, he was kidnapped by a group of people. The Genetic Research Authority fills Swamp Thing with hope, and Avery Sunderland begins to trust him, relinquishing control of the town. A boat is brought nearby. Avery is pleased to see the boat, and promises that Dr. Jason Woodrue will come to assist with the treatment, hopeful for a return to human form. The next morning, Abby Arcane attempts to enter the analysis department to check the report, but finds her access card has lost its privileges, leaving her confused. The deputy director explains that the sample has been isolated, and no one is allowed to view the analysis report, falsely claiming an outbreak overseas. Harlan is sent away early in the morning without explanation. The investor appears from another door, explaining his conversation with Harlan the previous night and expressing clear understanding of Swamp Thing's condition. He hopes to collaborate on treating patients, but is prepared to take drastic measures to prevent the creature from threatening the world. He insists it's not about money and plans to capture Swamp Thing for the lab without performing cruel surgeries. Abby quickly realizes something is wrong, and knowing his bad intentions, declines the investor's offer of cooperation. Abby then leaves intending to help Alec, who seems to be in trouble, leaves a message for Harlan and prepares to head back to the town. Avery visits Dr. Woodrue, revealing his leg wound and a unique healing method, and recounts his experience in the swamp, which has turned the scientist into a certain creature. Dr. Woodrue is unsurprised, and revealing that he had received this information. During their conversation, Avery also finally learns who is trying to kill him, a plot orchestrated by the sheriff and his wife, which angers him and drives him to plot revenge. Avery asks Woodrue for help to restore Alec's human form because he feels saved by him. But Woodrue warns that once Swamp Thing regains his human form, He will lose his miraculous regeneration ability and no longer have the special value of saving millions of people, inevitably causing Avery's collaboration plan to fail, and him giving up the chance to become the richest and most recognized man in the world. Hearing this statement, of course, Avery's greedy spirit was reawakened and began to think about getting what he wanted. Later that night, they meet at the agreed location, where Swamp Thing also arrives to keep the appointment. Swamp Thing recognizes the renowned Dr. Woodrue and expresses his wish to become human again. Dr. Woodrue quickly agrees to the request and suggests going to the lab for treatment. However, Swamp Thing cannot leave the swamp and senses an approaching troop through nature's perception. Top mercenaries arrive, each experienced in battle and high-difficulty missions, but they hesitate to attack the formidable creature. Swamp Thing transforms his arms into spikes, threatening to leave the swamp or face death. When the mercenaries launch an attack using freezing gas, many are killed. Avery approaches and picks up a hunting rifle from the ground. After the smoke clears, Swamp Thing launches a barrage of attacks, and Avery takes the opportunity to shoot the unguarded creature, injuring him. The mercenaries focus their efforts and release a large amount of freezing gas, turning Swamp Thing into an ice sculpture, unable to exert his powers. Abby arrives at the scene, finding only ammunition and traces of freezing gas. Abby knew that something happened to Swamp Thing. The episode ends with questions about Swamp Thing's fate. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, because by subscribing you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.